The No Holds Barred Show, Sirius 122, Armed Forces Network, Sports Byline USA, here with Bjorn Rebney, CEO of Bellator Fighting Championships in Robstown, Texas for Bellator 6. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Wanted to ask you just a few questions regarding how this all came up. How long have you been wanting to promote MMA?
I've been a fan for probably 15 years. I was one of those guys who used to sit around with buddies and order pizzas and beer and watch all the old UFC events. I used to order the VHSs from Japan before we transitioned to DVDs, and was a fan of Hickson and Hoist and the whole kind of initiation crew, but my business was boxing. Boxing was the business. Boxing is what I did for a number of years through ESPN and ESPN2 and the Sugar Ray Leonard Presents Friday Night Fight Series. Was a co-owner of that company, and then finally got an opportunity about 3 years ago to do for my business life what I wanted, what I did for free, what I did for enjoyment, which was go to MMA events and watch them on TV and buy them on pay-per-view, etc. So the transition happened. I was just in a good place. I had the opportunity in terms of finances, and I had the opportunity in terms of time to dedicate myself to this, and dedicated myself to it, and it took about 3 years to get ESPN comfortable with the idea of moving forward, and now we're doing it.
Now, recently there's been some speculation, informed speculation, that there are discussions ongoing with ESPN2, or possibly ongoing with ESPN2, about possibly getting Bellator Fighting Championships to air on there. How are those discussions looking?
It's been a constant communication for 3 years with ESPN in terms of generating a comfort level with mixed martial arts as a Disney-owned company, getting them comfortable, as it's taken a long time for the Fertittas to get the general market comfortable with MMA as a real sport with real rules and world-class athletes as what I believe to be the greatest sport in the world. So the conversations are ongoing and the conversations are very comfortable. I think I can say without any question that come this fall, Bellator Fighting Championships will reach a very large both English and Spanish language market.
Is that something you can let us in on a little more? I mean, is there something? I mean, there's something in the works. Can we infer that?
Oh, we've been working diligently. We haven't slowed up in terms of working, in terms of expanding the viewer base, in terms of expanding our breadth to reach more people through our television distribution alliance, through our international licensing, through our venue deals, etc. So we've been constantly working on it. It didn't stop when the season started, and while there's a lot of work to do here, we've been working on that at the same time. I think my hope would be that within the next 30 to 60 days we'll be in a position to make some announcements in terms of where the show can be seen English language and what kind of universe it'll reach. Right now, of course, you can see the show every Wednesday at Bellator.com with John Anik and Jason Chambers through our Wednesday Warriors series, and then, of course, every Saturday night with on ESPN Deportes.
Yeah, and just speaking about the ESPN Deportes broadcast, we're looking at 1.0 and 1.2 household ratings, 18 to 34 male. Good number, but what was your reaction when you started getting some of the feedback as far as the ratings goes?
I think the most surprising number was when we did a 1-2, or just underneath a 1-2, a 1-1.9 on a replay, on a show that had previously aired and was airing 3 days later. It never surprises me because I'm an MMA fan. I consistently watch Versus and Spike and HDNet fights and Deportes on a very regular basis, so it doesn't surprise me when the numbers are high. But it's good to see that a new market like the Hispanic market, Spanish language television, which really hasn't had an MMA show focused on that market segment, is still able to do strong numbers. And I think that speaks to the issue that when this show transitions to English language, my hope would be that the ratings will be very high and the consumer response will be high. What I think it is, I think it's attraction to the tournament format. I think it's bringing objectivity to fighting sports, which has been missing for, I've been a fan and following fighting sports for 35 years, since I was a 10-year-old kid. And my uncle was a fight manager and a fight attorney. My grandfather was a fight promoter and a fight manager. Objectivity and tournament format are like anomalies in the fighting sports. And what we wanted to do is create a dynamic where fighters could control their own destiny. I wanted to create a dynamic where all that mattered was what happened in the cage. It didn't matter when there was a shiny suit sitting behind a desk going, oh, Hernandez versus Johnson, I can sell that to the network, so that'll be my title fight. That just never made any sense to me. So this was a format that I thought made sense for consumers, and it sure is a format that I enjoy watching. So,
what have you learned so far as a promoter of MMA events? How much different is it than when you were doing Friday night fights with Sugar Ray Leonard?
Right. From a differences perspective, I guess the things that really jump out at me is it's a younger demographic in terms of the fan base. It's a more socioeconomically impressed demographic in terms of the fan base. Of course, my involvement in mixed martial arts as a promoter, as a producer and organizer of events has just really been the last couple of years. But from a technological perspective, the dissemination of information on the internet, I mean, you look at, we had a fight last week in Dayton. Toby Amata had what I believe, I've probably watched 300 MMA events in my life. I think it's the greatest submission I've ever seen in my life. It was a freak of nature to watch it. But man, you're talking about 200,000 people that have actually viewed that video now. And what's cool about the people and the fan base who watch mixed martial arts, whether it be our show or the UFC or the WEC or Strikeforce, is man, they know how to get their information. They know where to go for it. If you don't provide great content and you don't provide it consistently and quickly, they will tune out and go somewhere else. So what it forces you to do as a promoter and as a producer is every fight's got to be a good fight. You've got to provide the content immediately. You've got to give the information instantaneously. So it's just much more of a technologically advanced system than exists in boxing when I was in it, or even today. I mean, boxing doesn't have any, when you talk about the sheer dogs and the junkies and the weeklies and Sirius and other people who are covering this game day in and day out, the information happens overnight. There's no delay to it. And so it's a speedier, quicker, and more electrifying type of environment to be in as a promoter-producer. And you know, if you're a fan of the game like I am, it's a very cool kind of situation and universe to be in.
Final question. How do you answer to maybe some concerns that observers, fans, other writers, etc. may have regarding what looks to be a lack of promotion among other formats, other media formats, or other media channels like Univision, Telemundo, Televisa, TV Azteca, or maybe some of the English-language sports channels? I mean, is that something that you think may hinder Bellator's growth, or how would you respond to those sort of criticisms or concerns?
You know, I think it's analogous in a certain way to what happened with Dana and Frank and Lorenzo when they were launching the UFC, is that they launched on Spike. They had a great response to what they were launching. It was a magnificent show, and yet there wasn't much crossover or saturation. We're a brand new brand. And regardless of the fact that we're teamed exclusively with an ESPN network, and regardless of the fact that we have a great tournament format or world-class fighters like Wilson Hayes and Eddie Alvarez and Hector Lombard and other guys, it takes time for that brand to build. The coverage that our public relations and marketing team has gotten for us out of Chicago, a group named Alpaytac Marketing, has been pretty spectacular in that they've hit the hardcore MMA media. So, you know, we consistently read about us on Junkie and Sherdog and the like and weekly, but they've also been able to get us into the Forbes of the world and the New York Times and others who have written about it and talked about the tournament format and how it's different from what people see in fighting sports. So I just think that, as with anything, you got to keep building it. Every show's got to be better than the last. You got to put on great fights. It's got to build to something. It's got to mean something. You know, we're not in this for the short term. We're not in this for one big hit and splash and move on. We're in it for what's going to be years to come. So I just think that as more people become familiar with this format and the tournaments and what it means and how the fighters control their destiny and how much they make inside the cage, I think it will catch fire and draw a bigger and bigger audience. I'm happy with the exposure. I'd always like it to be more, but I'm pretty pleased with it right now.
Bjorn Rebney, CEO of Bellator Fighting Championships, here on the No Holds Barred Show, Sirius 122, Sports Byline USA, and America's Armed Forces Network. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on.